The mysterious disappearance of Bison Dele. Bison Dele, born Brian Williams, was a 6'11" NBA player with real talent. He even won a championship alongside Michael Jordan in 1997. He walked away from the NBA at just 30 years old. He gave up millions because he hated fame and the business side of basketball. He later changed his name to Bison Dele to honor his African heritage. After retiring, he traveled the world, played music, read poetry, and lived life on his own terms. In July 2002, Bison set off on a sailing trip from Tahiti on his boat. With him were his girlfriend Serena Carlin, the boat's captain Bertrand Saldo, and his brother Miles Debord. About a week after they set sail, only one person returned, Miles Debord, his brother. But here's the thing. He came back alone, in the same boat, acting shady. People were immediately suspicious. Then it got worse. Miles forged Bison's signature to buy gold using Bison's money. He kept changing his story and refused to cooperate with the police. The FBI stepped in and suspected that Miles had killed everyone on board, either during a fight or as part of a planned setup. Investigators learned that the brothers had a tense relationship. Bison was thriving and adventurous, while Miles struggled emotionally and financially. It's believed a fight broke out on the boat, possibly over money or jealousy. Miles may have killed Bison and then murdered Serena and the captain to cover it up. He likely dumped all three bodies into the ocean. None were ever found. As the FBI closed in, Miles overdosed on insulin in a California hotel room. He slipped into a coma and died taking the truth with him. No bodies, no confession, just a mystery that was never solved. Gilbert Arenas versus Javaris Crittenton. Back in 2009, Gilbert Arenas was a star player for the Washington Wizards. Funny guy off the court, big-time scorer on the court, but things went real sideways. It all started over a gambling argument with one of his teammates, Javaris Crittenton. They were on a team jet playing cards, like a lot of players do, and it got heated. Words were exchanged, and the tension didn't stop there. A few days later, Arenas brought multiple guns into the locker room. He actually laid them out in front of Crittenton's locker as a joke/threat, and told him to pick one. He said it was just messing around. To make it worse, Crittenton pulled out his own gun too. So now you've got two NBA players pulling guns in the team locker room like it's a Wild West movie. Once the story got out, it blew up everywhere. The NBA suspended Arenas for the rest of the season. He also pleaded guilty to a felony gun charge, got probation, and basically ruined his own career. He went from being a superstar to someone nobody wanted to sign. It's one of the wildest and dumbest stories, all over a cards game. Javaris Crittenton murder case. Javaris Crittenton was once a rising NBA player. Drafted by the Lakers in 2007, the same year as Kevin Durant, he came into the league with solid potential as a point guard. You first heard his name in the last story from the gun incident with Gilbert Arenas in 2009. They got into a fight over a card game on a plane and pulled guns. After that, his career was basically over. No team wanted that kind of drama. He was out of the league, still in his early 20s. Fast forward to August 2011. Crittenton is back in his hometown of Atlanta, but now he's mixed up with the Crips gang. Earlier that year, someone had robbed him, taking some of his jewelry and other belongings. But instead of reporting it, he decided to handle it himself. One night, he spots a group of people standing on the street. He thinks one of them was involved in the robbery, so he pulls up in a car and starts shooting. But he misses his target. Instead, he hits and kills a 22-year-old mother who was outside with her kids. She had nothing to do with anything, just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Police investigated and arrested Crittenton soon after, a former NBA player, now facing a murder charge. He later pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 23 years in prison. Len Bias, biggest what if? Len Bias was a college basketball superstar in the 1980s. He played for the University of Maryland and was known for his explosive athleticism and a jumper that people said was as smooth as Michael Jordan's. A lot of fans and scouts believed he was next in line to challenge MJ. In 1986, he was drafted second overall by the Boston Celtics. That was massive. The Celtics had just won a championship and were already one of the best teams in the league. Everything was falling into place for him. But just 2 days after being drafted, Len Bias died. He was only 22. He went back to his college dorm to celebrate with friends. That night, they used cocaine. Not a small amount either. It was pure, uncut, and way more intense than what most people were used to. At some point in the early morning, Len collapsed. His heart just stopped. He went into cardiac arrest and died almost instantly. Medics tried to revive him, but it was too late. But what makes his story even more shocking is what came after. Len Bias's death triggered a nationwide panic about drugs, especially cocaine. It led to the passing of the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986, which introduced mandatory minimum prison sentences for drug offenses. His death wasn't just a basketball tragedy. It helped reshape drug policy across the entire country. Tim Donaghy scandal. Tim Donaghy was an NBA referee from 1994 to 2007, and for most of his career, nobody suspected a thing. But behind the scenes, he was gambling on games, and not just any games he was reffing himself. He started out betting with friends in 2003, but by 2006, things got deeper. He got involved with two men named James Batista and Thomas Martino, who were connected to organized crime. Donaghy would give them tips on which teams to bet on, based on inside info like player injuries, ref matchups, and even how other refs felt about certain players or coaches. He didn't make millions personally. It's believed he earned around $30,000 to $50,000 from the betting, though the people using his info made way more, possibly millions of dollars. But the mob gave him $2,000 per game he gave inside info on. So how did he get caught? The FBI was already watching Batista and other mob-connected guys for other reasons. During wiretaps, they kept hearing them talk about the NBA ref giving them betting info. That led agents to Donaghy. He was interviewed and eventually cracked. He admitted everything, pleaded guilty to 2 felony charges, and served 15 months in federal prison. Kobe Bryant's sexual assault. In 2003, Kobe Bryant was 24 years old and already one of the biggest stars in the NBA, a 5-time All-Star, 3-time champion, and the face of the Lakers. But everything changed during a trip to Colorado, where he had gone for knee surgery. While staying at a hotel, Kobe met a 19-year-old front desk worker. They talked, flirted, and eventually went up to his room. The woman later told police that Kobe raped her. She said she went to his room willingly, but things quickly turned violent, claiming she told him to stop, and he didn't. Kobe admitted they had sexual contact but insisted it was consensual. He said she never said no, and that he believed everything was mutual. Soon after, police arrested him and charged him with sexual assault. The case exploded in the media. His clean image took a huge hit. Sponsors dropped him, including McDonald's, and he had to juggle court appearances while still playing during the season. Kobe held a press conference alongside his wife Vanessa, where he publicly apologized for cheating on her, but stood by his claim that he didn't assault the woman. The case was set to go to trial, but several things changed. The woman's identity was leaked, and she began receiving hate and harassment from the public. Eventually, she chose not to testify, and the charges were dropped in 2004. She later filed a civil lawsuit suing Kobe for damages. That case was settled privately in 2005. Kobe didn't admit guilt, but issued a public apology, saying, "Although I truly believe this encounter between us was consensual, I recognize now that she did not, and does not, view this incident the same way I did." Lorenzen Wright disappearing. Lorenzen Wright was a 6'11" NBA player who spent 13 seasons in the league. Drafted 7th overall in the same class as Kobe Bryant and Allen Iverson, he was known as a reliable big man. Off the court, he had 6 kids and was seen as a devoted father. In July 2010, Lorenzen Wright went missing. His mother hadn't heard from him in days, which was strange. They were close. A few days later, a 911 call came in, but it was incomplete. The only thing heard on the call was a bunch of gunshots, then silence. For 10 days, no one knew where he was. Then his body was found in a wooded area outside Memphis. He had been shot multiple times, and due to the heat and time, the body was badly decomposed. It was clear he had been dead for days. At first, the case went nowhere. No arrests, no leads. For 7 years, it stayed cold, with more questions than answers. Why would anyone kill him? Was it a random robbery or something deeper? In 2017, everything changed. Police recovered a gun from a lake near Mississippi, which turned out to be the murder weapon. That led them to Billy Ray Turner, a local landscaper. When police pressed further, they uncovered another suspect, Shara Wright Robinson, Lorenzen's ex-wife. Turns out Shara had plotted the murder with Turner, who was a close friend. The motive was money, and she was angry at Lorenzen over their divorce and finances. They had even tried to kill Lorenzen once before in Atlanta, but failed. Days later, they lured him into a trap in the woods and shot him to death. In 2019, Shara pleaded guilty to facilitating murder and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Billy Ray Turner went to trial in 2022, was found guilty of first-degree murder, and received life behind bars. Former NBA star to homeless. Delonte West was an NBA player with real talent. He got drafted in 2004 and spent about 8 years in the league, even playing alongside LeBron James during his time with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But behind the scenes, Delonte was battling something serious. He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a condition that causes extreme mood swings, from high energy, reckless behavior to deep depression. He opened up about his struggles but admitted he didn't always take medication because it made him feel like someone else. As time went on, his behavior became more erratic. He fought with coaches and teammates, and in 2009 he was suspended after being caught riding a motorcycle while carrying multiple guns. He also had some strange moments during interviews and practices that raised concerns. Eventually, no team wanted to take the risk. By 2012, he was out of the league. After basketball, things spiraled fast. In the years that followed, Delonte started appearing in viral videos that shocked fans, begging for money on the street, walking barefoot, sleeping at gas stations, and even getting beat up in public. It was heartbreaking. A former NBA player who once made millions was now homeless and struggling to survive. People tried to help. In 2020, Mark Cuban, then owner of the Mavericks, personally picked Delonte up from a gas station and paid for his rehab. Other NBA players and fans raised money and offered support. For a while, there was hope. Delonte was seen working at a rehab center and seemed to be doing better. But months later, new photos surfaced, showing him back on the streets, asking for help again. His story became one of the saddest and most public falls from grace in NBA history.